Welcome to the Art of Hitting channel. Today we got a nice little segment for you from the Dugout. The Dugout is on Spotify, and it's has two episodes coming out each month. This month's episode, one of them will be Steve Imlay from the West Coast. Steve is going to be the Dugout's representative from the West Coast, talking all things West Coast softball. We are going to feature Steve, and Steve will bring us the news from the West Coast and update us on some of the history of the West Coast. Dan and I have been doing the history for the East Coast and getting a lot of it down and interviewing a lot of interesting people. We expect to do the same for some of the West Coast people. So contact Steve, and he'll be our contact with y'all. Enjoy. This is behind the scenes. Our video, our app did not work on Riverside, so we don't have any video of Steve in the interview, but we do have the audio. Enjoy. Welcome to the Dugout. What a show we got for you today. Dan, we got Steve Imlay. Hey, you know Steve Imlay, right?
I heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's a legend from out west.
West Coast famous.
Yeah, West Coast famous. Yeah, for the good reasons of being West Coast famous. Steve Imlay, born 1949, Columbus, Indiana. Graduated high school in 1967 from Columbus High School. They renamed that high school yet? Don't answer that question. Graduated Oakland City University in 1971 with a BS in education. I just assumed he had a general BS, you know.
Did you have to go to school for that degree?
Yeah, you didn't know it was a comedy show, did you? He's a school teacher in Columbus. Taught elementary school, 5th and 6th grade, and he coached all different sports. Took a position of educational sales curriculum specialist, salesperson for about 50 years. You'll have to. Welcome to the Dugout. What a show we got for you today. Dan, we got Steve Imlay. Hey, you know Steve Imlay, right?
I heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's a legend from out west.
West Coast famous.
Yeah, West Coast famous. Yeah, for the good reasons of being West Coast famous. Steve Imlay, born 1949, Columbus, Indiana. Graduated high school in 1967 from Columbus High School. They renamed that high school yet? Don't answer that question. Graduated Oakland City University in 1971 with a BS in education. I just assumed he had a general BS, you know.
Did you have to go to school for that degree?
Yeah, you didn't know it was a comedy show, did you? He's a school teacher in Columbus. Taught elementary school, 5th and 6th grade, and he coached all different sports. Took a position of educational sales curriculum specialist, salesperson for about 50 years. You'll have to explain what that is to us after we get done introducing you. But you are elected.
That may take a couple of podcasts.
Well, just a short version. You were elected, nominated, and inducted into the SSUSA Hall of Fame in 2010. 2014 into the Florida Senior Sports Legends Hall of Fame. 1987, you were into the ASA Hall of Fame, nominated and elected, or inducted, I should say. And then finally, Columbus, Indiana Hall of Fame 2020, and there was a little note on there, that's the one I'm most proud of. And we'll ask you about that. Or maybe right now, why are you the most proud of that?
Well, I think it's just that's your hometown. That's the guys you grew up playing ball with. They saw you when the good and the bad and et cetera. And it was just quite an honor to be elected into the Columbus Hall of Fame. I know it's All the Hall of Fames are wonderful. There's no doubt about that. I'm proud of all of them. This one was just kind of a personal thing. It was really nice.
No, I understand. I was just asking that to get that out to the audience. Fully understand the point, because I got a similar situation. Then you started a relationship with Ken Van Bogart. Most people call him Bogey. And as Audie was saying, anybody that's known in softball by one name, he's a pretty famous guy. So that started a nice relationship. And then I guess you started the SLI Academy hitting clinic in 2015. Was that a result of meeting Bogey?
Absolutely. I think that, obviously I met Bogey early on, and we talked quite a bit about hitting, and I thought I knew quite a bit about hitting. And after talking to Bogey, I decided I knew very, very little about hitting. So for the next few years, I really absorbed as much knowledge as I could from him. And he's one of the best. He really has a great knowledge of the game, and still has a great. I just came back from a week, spending a week with him up there, and we went back over that. And again, it reaffirmed the fact that I know very little compared to what he knows. So,
okay. Well, tell us about your family.
Well, I've come from, my mom's still alive. She's 91, healthy as can be, doing real well, in fact. And I've got two sisters back in Columbus, and quite a few cousins back in there. Most of my family's back there. I've got 3 children with my first wife. They live pretty much in Florida and in South Carolina and in Indianapolis, so they're spread out a little bit between them and my grandkids.
Okay.
And then I have my second marriage. I've got a stepson there with them and his family, and so we were pretty close with them as well.
Okay, and
17. We got 17 grandchildren.
17 grandchildren. Holy mackerel! You need a damn index card to remember all them names or something. I don't know. Is it on your phone? Can you?
That's for sure.
I'm not going to put you to the task of naming them all. That might be embarrassing. But let's get on with talking about your background. I see there's a little twing in my microphone. You want to try to
move it closer to you?
Is that a difference there? Does that make? Yeah, it does make it closer, huh?
Yep.
This close, is better like that.
It's better.
Okay. I guess it's all about being close to the microphone. So, listen, you're a big old boy. What are you, about 250, about 6'4"?
No, not even close. A little over 6 foot, and probably about the 235, 240 range. Most of that is not what it used to be. So. I used to be in the one circuit. Time I was up there pretty good.
Well, you were never 6'4", but you seemed like you were 6'4". You must played like 6'4".
I wish I was 6'4".
Ed's short. He looks up to a lot of people.
Yeah, I look up. Look at this man. Dan's getting with the humor. He's sounding like Audie.
Yeah, you looked really good, Ed, at the Worlds. I thought you were looking great. Great shape. Looked real good. Performed very well. Very proud of you.
Well, thanks, man. You did too, actually. I mean, you were in good shape. Not that I want to date you or anything, but...
That's not what you said before. He was talking, Steve, how handsome you were, but that's a side podcast, maybe.
Yeah, we're not supposed to talk like that on the air. Hey, listen, you play high school ball? What you play in high school?
I didn't. I played a little baseball and basketball in the beginning of high school, and then I ended up going to work, and I worked all the way through high school. And then I went to college, and I played basketball and baseball in college.
You're a good basketball player or baseball? Which were you better, baseball or basketball?
Definitely basketball.
Yeah. Outside shot, inside shot?
A little bit of both, but outside shot. I was a pretty good shooter.
Yeah, you're a pretty modest guy.
It's interesting how we've done some podcasts with some really good players like Steve. Rarely is the softball or baseball their true sport that they loved first. Isn't that ironic?
I don't know. Ironic. Who's ironic? Oh, you mean okay? I got
the situation.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I'm just throwing a joke in there.
Yeah, I wish I had put all my time into baseball. I think I could have been a lot better in baseball, but being from Indiana, it's basketball's number one.
That's right. You are from Indiana. Now it says there you played in top teams in Indiana. What do you mean by top teams? When did you start playing softball? What age?
Well, I actually started as a junior in high school. The local guys had a team, and they knew that I played, and they'd seen me play a little bit, and they asked me to come out and play softball, which I hadn't played before. I came in, I went out and did fairly well. I played with them for 2 years. In fact, when I was in college, I used to chip in money and would pay for my gas to come back and play for a tournament for a weekend for them.
No, you must have been good. They cutting you some slack, giving you some money, man. That's, So you'll be barred
was
from
for
all.
Gas. I wasn't getting paid or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, you never got paid. I'm sure of that. Right. So, you finished third in Midland, Texas A. Out of 176 teams. That's kind of funny, Dan kind of, is third. What's so big about that? I said, Dan, there's 176 teams in this thing. And, we're used to going to tournaments with like 3 or 4. 176 teams, that's hard to get through. Back in the old days, you had the sub-district, the district, the state, regional, and then nationals. You had to be really good to win a national back in the day. You agree?
Yeah, you had to qualify all the way up on that. That one was significant. Well, first of all, it was the quality of teams were outstanding. We were in the winners bracket, and we had beaten the team we played earlier in the year in another tournament, and we just came up a couple runs short, and then the team really the best team in the tournament we had beaten before, and they came back and got us. But that was a team. The championship was qualified for what they called the American Worlds, and what they did is they put together a 4-team tournament out of Canada, USA, and then I think there was one in Mexico and one in Brazil, and they all came to Oklahoma City and played a tournament. If we'd won that, we would have qualified for that, but we didn't do it, so we came up a little short.
So I guess when you first started breaking into national championships, you did that in the 35, 40, and 45. What association was that in?
Well, we played ASA a lot. We played a little bit of USSSA. We played ISA, actually. One championship we won, we actually had a guy who won the burglar award, where he stole bases. So that was an interesting one, too. That was down in Atlanta. But we played quite a few different associations. We really focused probably more on ASA than anybody back then.
Is that at the country club, Atlanta, that place they had called the Atlanta Country Club, with all the complexes with the indoor? I remember that's when we played world tournaments.
A long time ago. It seemed to me like it was around Marietta that we played, but I couldn't swear to it.
That memory's gone on you. So, how'd you manage your job and family playing all this ball?
Well, I was very fortunate with the job I had. I was traveling quite a bit, and with that, I had some freedom. So it worked out pretty well. I could work it around, especially back then. Everything was pretty much on the weekend, so you might even back then. Most of the tournaments were Saturday and Sunday. They weren't even Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now the one, like for example, in that had 176 teams. I think that was 3 days at least, so it was quite a bit on that. But it wasn't too difficult. I had the freedom and ability to do that. I was a salesperson most of that time and had some flexibility in my schedule.
Yeah,
as long as you're doing well, you have flexibility in your schedule.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. That's when you took this new job as a sales. What did that entail? What did you do? A lot of traveling or what?
Well, I started out in education, and I went into educational sales, and my specialty was curriculum. And then I ended up working in all areas of education. I got to be pretty well-rounded in everything from special ed all the way down to at-risk students. So I learned quite a bit about the education market, met a lot of people throughout the country, and actually ended up traveling the whole country towards the latter part of my career.
Teaching is a special gift, and it seems like you're still teaching even to this day. Did you know as a young person that might be something for you?
I don't know that I really realized that later. I do realize it now. I think it helps me tremendously with the clinics. Bogey is always making comments about the fact that it's a big advantage for me because I was a teacher. You try not to talk too long. You don't want to lose them, so I've got like 5 or 6 minutes and then we do something. So I try not to talk too much. Occasionally I slip up, but not very often.
I was a witness to your work with Gary Benton, where I'd like to talk about that a little bit later, but to emphasize to the listeners, you are a very good communicator. The way you deliver the message, and not a lot of extra information, just right to the point. Very well done.
Well, I appreciate that. I have to give Bogey credit for that again. One of the things that he's really, really works very hard at and makes me work hard at is the fact that you could be saying the same thing to another person. They're saying it differently, and because they're saying it differently, you do not communicate. So I think a lot of times, terms, what you're saying, how you're saying it, can be misinterpreted, so you got to be very careful how you state things. So I work really hard at that, and I still have a ways to go on that. I'm not perfect in that. I know the art of hitting, that has the same thing. Your terms are the terminology you used, which are very good terms, but people can misinterpret some of the things sometimes of what what you're trying to say.
Yeah, people are saying the same thing in different ways, and yeah, that usually.
Exactly.
And Bogey's got his own set of vocabulary that he's come up with. How long has he been doing it? Like 15 years?
I've been around Bogey for about 20 years. Okay. I probably have been doing the clinics now about 10 years. So I've been doing them about 10 years.
Oh, you've been doing it 10 years. So Bogey's been doing it for 20 years.
He's been at it for, actually before that, but that was right when he started Swing Makeovers, right about 20 years ago.
18 years.
20.
So when I was 57. Yeah. YouTube, was it YouTube out in 20 years ago? Not really, was it? YouTube didn't come from 20 years ago, did it? He was doing the VHSs probably.
Yeah. I could be off a year or two.
I'm not.
18.
You're probably right. I'm just trying to get that in my head. That seems. I was 57. I don't remember. I don't know how long YouTube. But he's got 22,000 followers, so he's been clicking it out, man. Yeah, he knows his stuff.
He does. Brett's very good too. I think that's of course, that would be a natural extension of Bogey, but between the two of them, they're very knowledgeable.
Yeah, well, they've done a lot of swing makeovers, and I think he tells me so. Yeah. He's got some kind of joke. I forget how he puts it, so I'm not going to say it. But you know what I'm talking about when you call him. He says he's ruined so many swings or something like that, being comical. He
is. Bogey's got a great sense of humor. You just got to be around him. I think you really appreciate it sometimes.
Well, he's got that.
If you ever watch his videos, you always see the little things he does at the end. So he gets pretty creative on that. I
seen one there was like a little story with some guy. It was actually kind of funny. A guy and a girl, and I forget the scenario, but yeah, it was funny. Yeah, it was real funny.
Is this a good time to talk more about his academy? Or you want to circle back to it? Well,
yeah, the academy's kind of 10 years. Did you start the academy before you went to Vegas or after?
After, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's move to Vegas. That was in 1998. 1998. You just turned 50.
I was actually, when I went to Vegas, I was 40. I was 48 when I first moved to Vegas. Pretty close to 49, and then of course I became eligible after that for the senior softball. But I had a year there that I was pretty much not eligible for senior softball.
Yeah, because in 1996 I turned 50. I remember because I played. I played 50 ball, so I'm a few years older than you are. 4 actually, right? You're 70. What, 4?
I'm 74. Yeah. Sometimes with your beginning and ending of the year, they can be a little bit of difference or not very much.
Yeah, well, I probably won't see you next year because I'm going to play 80, dude. I'm going to play 80. I'm going to rip 80.
Oh, are you going to 80 next year?
Yes, sir. You don't think I need to be an 80?
I think you'll totally dominate at 80s is what I think.
I don't know, man.
Not that you weren't doing very well 70s.
Yeah, well, got to move on. You got to move on.
Yeah, I'm moving up to Oman. I'm going to play with Oman next year. So we were trying to put a team together to give you a challenge next year.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised you weren't there this year. But yeah, every year it's going to be tougher for Venom. I'll be on the Venom some, but I'm pretty much relegated to just catching and. I want to do a little defense. I've been hurt, but this ain't about me. Let's talk about you. You played senior softball in Las Vegas on a few 50 and over national championship teams. I got a couple notes here. Of course, you know Hank, right? Hank Cluse. And
oh, yeah. Hank's great.
David Barnes.
Hank Cluse, probably Barnes. Mark Barnes is good. Yep. They're all
David,
out of
David, right? Isn't it David?
Yeah. David. Mark Barnes is down here. I'm sorry, I got the wrong Barnes. David Barnes is up there, yeah.
Yeah. Those two guys are like the local legends there. But there's one guy. How long did you spend out there? 10 years in Vegas?
I was actually in Vegas for about 12 years, and then we decided to come down to Arizona. That's where my wife was from originally.
Well, let me throw this name out here. Joe Upperman. Joe Upperman. You know that name?
I know the name. I don't know the person. I know the name. I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's out in Vegas. And why did I ask about Joe Upperman? He he played, he was like an 80-year-old. He just died recently, but he's the guy that brought me into the game. And he moved to Vegas, and I used to see him out there when I go out there all the time. But, yeah, he picked me up as a 19-year-old and said, hey, man, you're a good baseball player. You come out and teach you softball. And that's when my passion.
That's a great story. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And Joe out there became, they all knew him because he's a little nutty. But he bet, he was a gambler. And he went out to Vegas. He retired from the post office, and he went out there to gamble. And that's how he lived the last 20 years of his life, gambling on sports, not on cards. But he was a sports fanatic, and he would win on gambling sports. And he was very good.
Yeah, short, quick story. When I first moved out there, I had a neighbor. I didn't know him very well. And every morning they left at just exactly at 8 o'clock, and every afternoon they came in almost exactly at 3 o'clock. And I ended up moving away from that house, and the person came out and talked to me. He hadn't really talked to me the whole time I was there. And it turns out that what he was doing, he's leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning to go gamble, and he finished at 3 o'clock every day, 5 days a week.
What was he gambling?
That happens out there.
What was he gambling?
Yeah, I don't have any idea. I just know that it
didn't go in that
I would imagine it was probably, I really don't know. And maybe he was doing slots. Maybe he was gambling blackjack or something. I don't know. But he was religious about it every day.
Well, he still lived there, so he must have been winning some.
Yeah. There's quite a few people who do make a living out there gambling. It's hard to believe, but those are the exceptions, not the rule.
Yeah, they don't keep them lights on by people winning all the time. Mm. So you played with teams like MTC. I remember them. We had a lot of battles. When do you remember the first time that? I don't think I remember the first time we played against each other. I do remember several times that we played against each other, but. What do you remember from any of those battles we used to have with MTC?
Well, I think we actually ran into each other when I played with the Las Vegas Stars.
Las Vegas
and we took our bumps against you guys back then, and then we had a couple of years where we were pretty dominant and won a couple of world tournaments. But so that was when it started. So that's how we started the rivalry, if you want to call it that. Yeah. And then, of course, when I went in the later years with MTC, we played you quite a bit, and you won the majority of those. We did win a few against you, not all of them. And then as we got a little bit older, we started leveling out a little bit more to where it was a little bit more equal. And then I think the last time we played was with Omen when we played Venom a couple years ago, and I think we won a couple in a row, and then I think you guys have won a couple since then. So,
but you were with Timberworks, weren't you? The last time we played you in 65s, weren't you with Timberworks?
Yeah, I was at Timberworks almost 10 years. And I think we won 9 years in a row. We won the world tournament, and I think 6 or 7 of those we won the Triple Crown. So it was a very, very good team, and it's just one of those things that kind of clicked all of a sudden, and we kind of went off, and we had a couple of years where we didn't really lose a game. So it was a very good team, great teammates, and good coach, and just a real good experience.
Yeah, pretty much. I think what happened is that we dominated for a while, and they said, well, you guys took Timberworks. That was like the best of 3 different teams, if I remember correctly. Now, you would know better than I.
Yeah, actually, we started Timberworks, and it was sort of a collection of different players. It wasn't really like we took the best off of one team, the best off the other. Obviously, we knew several people who played with MTC and some of the teams in Northern California and a few teams in Arizona. We had a guy out of Washington who plays with him. Rick is a very good player, and he's made a big difference on the team and still playing with them. So we were spread out quite a bit, but it wasn't your normal collection of the best off the best, you know.
Well, I just know that when Timberworks came into the 70s, it was I don't know what the word is, but it was a message. It was sent loud and clear. Dude, your run is over.
Yeah, they were a dominant force, no doubt.
Well,
dominant force, and still are. They're still very good.
Well, they're bigger and stronger, just like we were bigger and stronger than the guys ahead of us. Yeah. You know, here in Florida, we had the legends to deal with, the Florida legends, right. But we could deal with them very easily because we outpowered them, and we were just a lot bigger and stronger. And that's what the Timberworks guys are, a lot bigger and stronger than the group of people, which happens to be the Venom team ahead of them, and of course the Omen team. The Omen team is a little older than the Venom team.
Yeah, the Omen was basically several of us aged up, and we went to Omens, and that's when we ran into playing you, although you had played Omen before then as well. And no doubt you guys are a very dominant team as well. So it was, but we had a couple of good years against you there before then Timberworks aged up, and then we all went back to Timberworks, and then I think now a lot of us are coming back to Omen again, so...
Yeah, so you think Omen's going to have? I heard word that the Timberworks guys, when they turned 75, they were all going to have to be Timberworks and not Omen. I heard Omen was going to go 80s, but that's not true.
Well, actually, Omens. There's going to be 2 Omens. One will be 80, and one will be 75.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's enough guys. So yeah, it'll be a challenge. You don't win forever. No,
nobody. It's always. And that's the way it should be. I think you always want to be continued to be challenged and pushed a little bit. You don't want to just completely dominate. It's not any fun to win, if you don't have all the time either. I mean, you want to have good games and good tournaments and play that. Of course, everybody wants to win as much as you can, but you want to be challenged and pushed as much as you can to improve as a player. So it's kind of a vicious circle.
Dan, why don't you get into his academy and how he's doing on that?
Yeah, I'd like to get into the academy, but I've got another question that's kind of come to my mind as I've been listening to your history. I've never seen you play, but I sure have seen what you do with other hitters. What kind of hitter are you? How would you describe yourself?
What kind of hitter am I?
Yeah, batting average, you power guy, all fields, dead pull. What do you think?
Well, when I was younger, I think I was I was always a kind of a combination hitter of a pretty good average hitter and pretty decent power. As you age a little bit, your power kind of goes down, so you have to make adjustments to that. So I've continued to hit. I've always hit fairly well for a very good average. 800s is normally where I strive to be at, and I'm pretty close to being there most of the time. Really, the thing I've learned, especially playing in 75s, is you got to learn to go to all fields. You can't just do it to one field. So that's helped me a lot too. So I work hard on that and driving the ball.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. So, I mean, the first question is for the listeners.
Yeah, hold on before we move on. The guy is a home run hitter. He's just being, he's just being nice and, modest, they call it. But yeah, I seen him hit one time 7 or 8 home runs in a row.
In a row.
After they were beating the hell out of us. I think it beat us by 25 that game. after we were undefeated in the round robin. And I guess I could say, Steve, you remember that? He says, hell yeah, I remember that. Steve, you remember that?
Of course I do.
Okay.
I do remember having my eyes. Everything I remember about it, but
What's he remember? What did he say? What did you say?
I remember about eyes closed during most of those swings. I don't remember.
Oh, your eyes closed. Well, hey, you teach me that technique in your academy.
No kidding. So for the listeners, what is the Steve Imlay Academy?
Basically, what our goal and purpose is to help people with the technical end of their swing. It's not there's a lot of camps and et cetera. They come out and they do a lot of batting practice, play games, and et cetera. Ours is pretty serious. We work on basically the fundamentals, and to do that, you have to go through quite a bit of analysis. One of the big problems is when you have your teammates telling you what to do is they don't really know. They're just telling you what affects them, because they don't have the ability to watch you and analyze your swing and say, okay, this is what you're doing wrong. And that's what we do. We try to break that down to the point, and then we try to break down a program where we put it down into 1, 2, or 3 steps, and these are things you need to work on if you want to improve your hitting. And most of the time that does work on that. Even really good hitters may have a small flaw, and you know, all of us have gone through it too. I've gone through it myself. Working with Bogey, I had a tendency to drop my bat head a lot. All of a sudden, I realized I didn't realize that, and then by him picking that up and reviewing one of my videos, he sat there and said, "Well, you're dropping your bat head." I started working on it and immediately became a better hitter, I think. So, the analysis is very, very important in that process.
Mm-hmm. What was the genesis of starting to do hitting clinics?
Well, I think working with Bogey and Bogey doing that, and there was nothing out west at all. And so I was just looking at it, and I thought, well, that'd be something nice to do. I would enjoy doing that. And I was getting close to the age I was going to be retiring pretty soon. And so I started getting into it, and I really fell in love with it. Doing the clinics is absolutely fantastic, and still continues to be that way. There's a lot of work connected to it. I mean, analysis, probably after the clinic, I spend probably an hour analyzing every player for about an hour. So I mean, there's a lot of work involved in it, but it's a labor of love, so it works out well.
What is there a type of hitter that you like working with the best? I'm sure you get lots of different levels of players requesting your service.
Yeah, I've had Hall of Fame players. I've had conference players. I've had young players. I've had a lot of female players. I love working with the women. They're like a sponge absorbing everything, and so are the young players. But I probably focus more on the senior players. I've had a lot of 80-year-old players coming out and working on that, and it's amazing how well they can hit at the end of just by correcting a few things. So it's always fun to work with different people and see the results. I had several emails from people who had come to the Worlds these last few weeks, and they walked away with winning the Worlds, winning MVPs, hitting better than they ever hit. So those kind of things keep you going.
It must be rewarding to hear that kind of information, that feedback.
Well, he's talking pretty soon. We're going to be calling him Teacher Man.
Teacher Man.
You watch Teacher Man?
Teacher Man Steve, yeah.
Steve, you watch Teacher Man on YouTube? Steve.
Teaching Man on YouTube.
Teacher Man. You never heard of Teacher Man? He's Aaron Judge's. He's Aaron Judge's hitting coach. One of the best hitting coaches in the world.
About the baseball, yeah.
Yeah, one of the best hitting coaches in the world. You must know him.
I like his style. He's very interesting. He's got a little storefront. Yeah, he's a good coach, no doubt. Well, obviously,
yeah, that's why I said they're going to call you, man, Teacher Man too.
I'll take that. That would be a compliment.
Well, it's meant to be.
How many hitting clinics do you do in a year?
Varies a little bit. I have picked up someone to help me, Mickey Czar, who will probably be taking that over when I retire, which I'm getting closer to that all the time. But it'll be a few years from now. But so with Mickey, I'll probably do a few more. But I would say we probably do 50, 60 clinics a year.
Holy mackerel. That sounds like a corporation, dude.
Yeah, well, some of them are small, very small. They may be only a few people, and I've been able to do that. I've got a little route that I take up through Denver and Kansas City and St. Louis and Springfield, Missouri and Oklahoma, where I've got quite a few people that come during that period, and so that's helped a lot with that. So,
well, listen to
so
me.
we do several a month.
Well, listen, how about you give me a list of the ones coming up, either the first of the year or the end of the year? I guess the end of the year, it's probably, are you full, or do you have ones that need to be promoted?
Well, with Mickey helping out, we always have room to add more people. Again, we keep it down to a certain number because it is very individualized. So no matter how much you want to do it in a group, you still comes back down to that individual attention is very important. So, but we can do up to 15 people, and we normally have 10 to 12 people at a clinic. So there's still room for expansion.
Well, go ahead and send me the list, and I'm going to put a short out on YouTube, and I'll do it as invitation to join up in these clinics that you're going to do, and so.
If somebody was interested,
I'll do that. I've got one actually this Sunday. I'm going to do.
Well, that's too quick, but
down to Tucson. So.
if somebody was interested in doing a clinic with you, how would they go about it, and what would it cost them?
Well, it would probably be the best place to reach me would be under my website, sliacademy.com. And there would be a list of clinics that we put them in there as well. And then you just go in there and look at it. And then they can also look through the website and see get more detail about what we do and how we do it. Our cost is $250 a person, although we're really looking at it right now because of everything going up in cost, hotels, gas, and everything else, whether or not we can maintain that $250. We've been able to maintain it so far. Almost everybody else has gone up in price, and I'm trying to fight that as much as I can. But right now we're keeping it at $250 a person, and I get about 40% of the people who come to the clinic will come back a second or third time because there is so much information, and so that's always good as well. I've never had anybody ever complain about cost when they go through the clinic, so it's been very rewarding from that point of view.
When you put it into perspective, I mean, it's the price of a bat.
Exactly. That's what we wrote it that way. Yeah. Yeah. And I do know that money's tight right now, and people are, I understand the economy is kind of going through a rough time too. So I understand that as well. But we still have quite a few people interested in improving on that. It keeps growing all the time. So. Okay.
Well, let's talk about why you're here today. You're here for a lot of reasons, actually. But the main reason is that, you've been selected by unanimous vote to be the representative for the #1 podcast on softball in the United States, and that's the Dugout. Did you realize that? You did realize that, right?
Yes, I did. I consider it a great honor to be selected for that process. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to getting into that.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't even close of a vote. It was unanimous.
Who's the #2 podcast, dude?
Who's number 2?
The #2.
Well, I appreciate it. I do.
We're the only one, Dan. Yeah. That's why we're #1. you got ruined everything, Dan. He thinks it's funny. I mean, we're the #1 podcast. But listen, what do you see your role as, and how? I mean, this is Dan, what do you see his role as?
We'd like to get a piece of the West Coast history. Steve, can you help with that?
Absolutely, and that's what I interpret as what you're looking for, and that's one of the main reasons I'm very, very interested in. I think the history of the Western softball is a very rich history with a lot of great players, as is the East, and I think it's a good way to represent those people and give them a chance to be recognized as well.
Well, that's what we wanted to do. We just want, I know the East Coast like the back of my hand because I've been involved in it since I was a kid. And although I didn't play at the top level when I was a young man, but at age 35, I know every player that ever played at the major plus level from 35 on up. And I'm assuming that you have that same breadth of knowledge in the senior ball. because you played out there like I played in here. So I think it's going to be a good relationship.
I would agree. I think if it's areas that I do not know, I know the people to go to find out about them, and to get names and people like that too. So there's a lot of quality people out here who are really historians on the Western softball, especially senior softball. So that should be an easy task.
Okay, the way I think this will look like we'll bring you on here once a month, every 2 months. And say, hey, what's going on out there in the status of the softball world? Who's the best team or something like that? But in the interim, you need to put together the history in terms of who can we interview. Like we interviewed Mike Masinko, we interviewed
Clatterball,
Don Clatterball, we interviewed Ray Fleetwood, we interviewed Stu Weinstein.
That's a good one.
Yeah. You probably don't know Stu Weinstein, but he had a big effect on softball in the early phases. He was actually the first USSSA state director, and he turned it over because he became the security head of security for Miami Dolphins for the last 35 years. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that went on with getting these characters that were very instrumental in the development of the game, and hopefully we'll do the same thing out at the West Coast based on your inputs.
I would agree. I think there's a lot of very interesting, qualified people, and I think there's a lot of teams that need to be discussed as well. I think that between those two things, that's what it's all about. I know Masinko has done a very good job of keeping the younger players, keeping us updated on that and where they're at and what's going on. And I would like to see that happen as well in the West. And I think you're doing a very good job in the East, so I'm looking forward to doing that out here.
Well, we're on the same page for sure. So, well, listen, Dano, why don't we take this on home, buddy? Go ahead.
Steve, you've been a great guest, and I always like to end our show with something inspiring for our listeners. So if you had to have an answer for this question, what are the Steve Imlay 3 keys to success in life?
Well, I think that, you can get into very heavy situations and things and talk about that. I try to keep them a little bit simpler. I think the number one thing is you should be happy doing whatever you're doing. And in our case, I think softball definitely qualifies for that. I think that jobs, I've always been very fortunate to have a job I enjoy doing. So that was a very, I always sit there and wondered how these people do this, working for 30, 40, 50 years with some place where they're not happy. So I think you got to be happy with what you're doing, whether it be doing hitting clinics or doing podcasts. There's a lot of things here that's very, very important to continue to do that. I think the other thing is you got to be hardworking. I think that's most of us fall in that category. We've been hardworking our whole life, and because we retire, I don't think we should stop being the hard workers that we were before. I think there's a joy in that comes through in that, and I think that's very, very important as well. And I think those are probably the two major things that I focus on and try to do that. There are a lot of things, obviously, that are important from family and religion and et cetera, but those are the things that keep me going right there.
Well, it's been a great interview, Steve. I look forward to talking to you on a regular basis, and we'll be seeing you sometime soon when you head out east. Take care, buddy.
See you, Steve.
Won't be long. I'll be out there. I'll tell you. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that moment with Steve. Look him up, and let's get the West Coast on board. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.